Welcome to the channel. Please subscribe if you like stories about the ancient world. Imagine two worlds existing on the same islands. For over 10,000 years, the Jomon people lived in harmony with the deep forests and raging seas of prehistoric Japan. Theirs was a world of spiritual complexity and hunter-gatherer stability. Then, around 300 BC, everything changed. A new way of life arrived on these shores, carried by winds, currents, and the ambitions of people from the Asian mainland. This was not a mere evolution. It was a revolution that would birth the Japan we know today. This is the story of the Yayoi transformation, a story of migration, innovation, and the birth of a nation. To understand the revolution, we must first appreciate what was revolutionized. The Jomon period represents one of the longest, most stable hunter-gatherer cultures in human history, spanning from roughly 14,000 BC to 300 BC. The Jomon people were not primitive. They were masters of their environment. Jomon pottery, the first art of Japan. Their pottery is among the oldest in the world, but it was not merely functional. The famous flame-style vessels from the Middle Jomon period are explosive works of art, organic, swirling forms that seem to capture the very energy of life and fire. This was a culture deeply connected to the spiritual world, a culture that expressed its identity through clay. A complex hunter-gatherer society. They were not nomadic wanderers. Evidence from sites like Sanai Maruyama reveals large, semi-permanent settlements with substantial pit dwellings, storage pits, and even ceremonial platforms. They practiced a sophisticated form of foraging, managing chestnut trees, and exploiting a wide range of marine and terrestrial resources. Their world was rich, stable, and spiritually profound. But it was about to be challenged by a new concept that would change everything. Agriculture. Around 900 BC, a technological and social tsunami began to build on the Korean peninsula. The Bronze Age was in full swing, and with it came wet rice agriculture and metalworking. By 300 BC, this wave finally crashed upon the shores of Kyushu, the southernmost of Japan's main islands. This was the beginning of the Yayoi period. The roots of transmission. The current archaeological consensus points to two main routes. The primary route was a relatively short sea crossing from the southern Korean peninsula to northern Kyushu. A second, perhaps later, influence came from China, possibly via the Ryukyu Islands, or directly across the East China Sea. These were not massive, organized invasions, but likely a steady trickle of migration over generations, families, clans, and skilled artisans bringing their knowledge with them. What did they bring? The Yayoi package. The migrants didn't just bring themselves, they brought a complete socioeconomic system. Wet rice cultivation, paddy field agriculture. This was the cornerstone. Rice required a completely new relationship with the land, clearing forests, building irrigation systems, and adopting a sedentary, calendar-based lifestyle. Metallurgy. The knowledge of bronze and later iron working. This meant superior tools for farming and warfare. New pottery technology. The Yayoi brought the potter's wheel and kiln firing, leading to a new aesthetic of simpler, more functional, and mass-producible pottery. A new social structure. Agriculture demands social hierarchy, leaders to organize labor, warriors to protect the valuable stationary resources, and a clear class system. The arrival of the Yayoi did not lead to the immediate disappearance of the Jomon. For centuries, the two cultures coexisted, clashed, and ultimately fused in a complex dance of adoption and resistance. The Great Aesthetic Divide. Jomon versus Yayoi pottery. This is where the difference is most visually striking. Place a flamboyant, cord-marked Jomon vessel next to a simple, elegant, red-slipped Yayoi pot. The Jomon piece is an expression of spiritual belief and individual artistry. The Yayoi pot is a tool of efficient storage and mass production. It represents a shift from a worldview centered on the spirit of the object to one centered on its utility in a structured society. The genetic story. Modern genetic studies confirm a significant influx of new DNA from the Korean peninsula during this period. The Jomon people were genetically distinct, with closer links to ancient Siberian populations. The Yayoi migrants introduced new genetic markers that today form a substantial component of the modern Japanese gene pool, especially in Western Japan. This was absolutely a story of people moving, not just ideas. A mosaic of adaptation. The spread of Yayoi culture was not uniform. In eastern Japan, the Tohoku region, Jomon traditions persisted for much longer. In some areas, a hybrid culture emerged, adopting rice agriculture but maintaining Jomon-style pottery and rituals. The revolution was real, but it was messy, negotiated, and regionally diverse. By the 1st centuries AD, the Yayoi transformation was complete across most of Honshu. The result was a fundamentally new society, the direct ancestor of classical Japan. The Rice Revolution and social stratification. Wet rice agriculture created surplus wealth. Surplus wealth created the need for storage, defense, and administration. This led to the emergence of stratified societies, with a clear elite class. We see evidence of this in the moated settlements and the disparity in grave goods. Some people were buried with precious bronze mirrors and swords, others with nothing. Warfare and metal. The first evidence of large-scale organized warfare in Japan comes from the Yayoi period. Skeletal remains show traumatic injuries from weapons. Settlements were fortified with moats and palisades. The control of bronze and iron became a source of military and political power. The bronze swords and spears were not just tools, they were symbols of authority. The path to the Kofun period. The Yayoi period laid every brick on the road to state formation. The social hierarchy, the agricultural base, the metal technology, and the trade with the mainland all culminated in the following Kofun period, with its giant keyhole-shaped tombs and the undisputed rise of the Yamato clan, the imperial line of Japan. The story that begins with migrants landing on a Kyushu beach ends with the emergence of a centralized state. The Jomon period gifted Japan its profound spiritual connection to nature and a breathtaking artistic spirit. But the Yayoi period gave Japan its bones. It gave it the rice-based diet that defines its cuisine, the social structures that would evolve into its classical civilization, and the technological prowess that would connect it to the wider Asian world. The transition from Jomon to Yayoi was not a replacement, but a synthesis, a tumultuous, centuries-long process of adoption, adaptation, and innovation. It was one of the most significant turning points in Japanese history, a moment when the islands were forcibly and irrevocably pulled into the current of world history. The next time you see a Japanese rice paddy, a simple ceramic bowl, or read about the ancient Yamato rulers, remember the journey. Remember the Jomon hunters in their deep forests, and the Yayoi farmers on their new frontier. Their story is the foundation of everything that followed. The revolution that began 2,300 years ago still echoes in the very soil of modern Japan. What do you think was the most significant change brought by the Yayoi period? Was it the rice, the metal, or the new social order? The exploration of Japan's deep past continues in the comments below. And if you want to join us as we unravel more mysteries of ancient civilizations, your journey is just beginning. Subscribe.